tutalisifu na kuliinua jina lako. Katika jina la Yesu tumeomba na kuamini. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. Okay. Thank you, Adu.
Amen.
For to that prayer. You can mute. Okay. My name is Bernard. They call me CPA Bernard. I'll be your co-pilot. Ann will be our pilot. And then will be both of us, Lydia and me. We assist in modulating the platform. So please, if you need to talk, you can unmute. Kama mnatumia several laptops in one room, please make sure just use one audio because of the echoes. And I think God will bless us. So let's take this opportunity to welcome Andaman. Ann, how are you?
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I am fine and ready to begin the day.
Thank you. Welcome. Yeah, you have blessed souls here, ready to learn and ready to engage. So without wasting more time, I want to pass the mantle to you so that you can lead us. We will assist you in modulating, yes. So karibu sana, Ann. Ann?
Good morning. Yes, let me put my presentation together, then get back, then continue in a minute.
Okay. Meanwhile, you can watu wafungue video another one. Hizo smiles ni za muhimu sana. Yeah, you as we wait Ann to do thank you, Ann. Okay, when you're ready, let us know.
I am ready.
Karibu sana.
All right. So maybe my my co-pilot, did you say you are called Ben? And kindly introduce to me the team so that I am fully aware of the people, the participants, so that I'm able to also temper my tone to match the participants here today. My co-facilitator, was it Ben? Am I still in the meeting?
Yes, Anna.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. So
Okay, that is Ben, right? Bernard Musyoki. Okay.
Yeah. With you have ministers in the children development centers, eh? That is CDWs and part-time teachers. They work direct with the children from different ages, different ages to 22 years. So I think today we have we have some youths a few, but mostly staff and teachers from different clusters, eh?
All right.
Yeah, from different clusters around Nairobi.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So today I'm going to talk a lot more about how families and the society at large can lead by example in supporting learning, even as our main goal is to learn how to manage the CBE transition that our country has been going through for a couple of years now. It always looks like it was just yesterday, but we've been with this curriculum since 2017, and this is 2016. Sorry, this is 2026, and so we are dangerously almost 10 years later into curriculum implementation. And that also puts our country at a very dangerous point of we only have 2 years left to transition the first class out of CBE, and so they become citizens of this country. The first class, the median age of most of our learners in grade 10 as we speak is 15 years. Now, even as we are cognizant of those facts, a lot of things have been happening. So today's presentation will dwell a lot on resourcing, and as you can see, on now helping us fill in the questions of CBE, and so where are we headed? Now, as our presentation today will focus on these 8 key areas. The context of curriculum change, the vision and mission of CBE. Many of us 10 years down the line, with just 2 years of our first class transiting into, in society, we still wonder, was it even relevant to change the curriculum? What was wrong with 844? We still ask those questions. Then number 2, we are going to look at the zone of proximal development. That's a technical term, but I'll break it down in a very simple manner so that we understand how learners learn. When we take our children to school at the beginning of the year and we say this child is now in grade 10, and then they're going to transition at the end of the year and go to grade 11. Within this whole year, what factors are affecting how this child is going to learn? And so therefore, we are able to curate and co-create a learning environment to support these learners. Okay? Against the backdrop of CBE. Then the parental engagement skills. As parents in CBE, apart from being a curriculum specialist, I'm also a grade 10 parent. So I've been in this journey, both at policy level, classroom level as a teacher, and in curriculum, and also as a parent. Then you begin realizing there are different skills that you actually do need as a parent, or, as a caregiver, that your 844 knowledge is very limited when it comes to how you need to steer forward, learning for your child, for, this child for whom you are a guardian. Then we have the CBE community engagement skills. Why does it suddenly matter that our communities need to understand CBE? You've seen a very critical subject in grade 10 in senior school that is called CSL, Community Service Learning, where we no longer treat the communities outside our school as villagers. When we went to school, we, we used to call the people outside our school villagers. But grade 10 learners and senior school are calling them a different name. They are calling them learning partners. And so how do we reach out to these communities? Because now those communities are an extension of our classrooms, and our learners will be interacting with the community every week as they do CSL and as they engage in their various chosen pathways and subjects. Then number 5, we are going to look at CBE assessment and how it's intertwined with learning and how it is completely inseparable and the implication it has on the learning resources. In 844, you would sit somewhere as a parent, just provide the basics, and when your child is in class 8 or form 4, That's the day when you're asked for anything that year, you provide gladly and say, hata anafanya mtihani. But now in CBE, our children are continuously being assessed. So we cannot sit somewhere and say, this child is now in grade 10. As a parent or as teachers, let us wait for grade 12 so that we avail learning resources. That will be too late because by then, 30% of the assessment will be already in the system. Okay? Now, these are a huge implication on the day-to-day learning of how CBE, everything is going on. Number 6, we have the 6 levels of resources in CBE. And it's very critical that we understand these as CBE community members, as parents. Why? The large portion of Kenya's education is public education. Now, when we look at public education from that point, most of our communities think that the free 844 education is the same as CBE, which is completely misguided. When the government says we are providing 100% capitation to schools to implement CBE, that it has not provided and it will not be able to provide. Okay. Bernard, let me know if I'm still in the meeting.
Yeah, you are very clear and audible. Audible and clear
Yes.
on the presentation.
Thank you. And so these 6 levels of resources, just to brush over them, because we're going to look at them, you're going to realize that in CBE, we have the national level resources in CBE. Our textbooks, our curriculum designs come at that point. It's because CBE is a standards curriculum implemented across the country. Then the second level of resources are the school level resources. We must have a school for us to even talk about CBE implementation. The infrastructure of a school, okay, the classrooms, the school fence. Yeah, it's very important to have a fence around a school because that is what now demarcates the safe space for learning for the children. Then once you have the school level resources, you come number 3 down to classroom level. Every learner goes to a classroom in this country. And as teachers, we keep saying now, our learners do not even go to a school. They go to a classroom. Because the classroom that child goes, they spend around 80% of their time in that school will be spent in a particular classroom. Okay? Then number 4, don't worry, I'll show them later. I'm just giving a recap before we go into the presentation. Number 4, we have the subject level resources. What a child who is doing biology and chemistry needs is not the same as what someone in arts, sports, and recreation needs. Those resources are extremely different. And what teachers are suddenly realizing is you have to communicate to different segments of parents and give them tailored information in regards to the learning resources required in that subject, especially in senior school, because of how critical it is. Then the 5th level of resource, which is actually most of us here today, we have what we call household level CBE resources. In every household implementing CBE, we need parents or guardians who understand CBE first. Number 2, who can provide a conducive learning environment at home. Number 3, who can strengthen the link between the school, the classroom, and home. Who can also, strengthen mambo ya discipline, values, motivation of the child. So that is the household level. And the last point of level resource is the community level resources in CBE. So we are going to look at that. And then lastly, I'm going to introduce us to what we call the load shedding timetable. which is different from the 844 timetable. So the 844 timetable is different. And in CBE, we are using what we call a load shedding timetable. This load shedding timetable is to help schools because if you look at the pathways in senior school, many schools decided to fix subjects. After admitting our learners in grade 10 in their diverse subject combinations, suddenly schools realized the timetable was not timetabling. So some schools decided to just provide combinations and force students that you must only take this. And when we were asking most of the schools why they were doing that, they kept saying it's the timetable. But now in CBE, we have a different kind of timetable that can help our students and our schools navigate those complex subject combinations. So that's what we are going to look at, these 8 areas in as far as we are concerned here today. Perhaps if I've left something out, someone can unmute and let me know so that I have it noted. Without much ado, let me go to this first slide. Now, you can also, Bernard, you can help me look at the chat box. If you have something, an addition that you want tackled through this presentation, you can actually put in the chat box and we'll be able to see. But we are looking at a very beautiful picture here. That's the picture of our book that will be out in about 2 months' time. It's been approved by KICD. It's a parental engagement manual for parents on navigating CBE. Now, it's no longer possible to just take your child to school and leave them there without being engaged. And I think that is really, can I say, pissing off a lot of parents. Many parents keep saying, in 844, tulikuwa tu tunasoma na tuna succeed. Hatukuwa tunaitwa hivi sana kwa shule. You know, why can't just teachers do their job? It's their job to teach. My job as a parent is to just pay school fees and provide what is needed. Kwa nini hao walimu wananiitaita kila saa? Kwa nini hao walimu wanatumatuma mtoto wangu assignments, do you help your child do this? What the hell is this? That's how parents vent. I'll come to the 21st century kind of education and why parental engagement is extremely important. But when you look at those 7 bulbs on this presentation, they contain the 7 skills that you need to have as a parent in CBE. And once you have these 7 skills, you will just sail through CBE. You will not have any problem. But for as long as the parents don't sharpen their skills to this level, they will struggle. It's the same way we have 15 teacher competencies. If our teachers don't brush up their skills to attain the 15 level competencies, they will struggle. Let's look at this very first competence or skill, the resourcing, volunteering, and linkages. In CBE, I've talked about the 6th level of resources. Our parents need to be aware of the 6th level of resources because they will help us in resourcing. And part of resourcing is volunteering. So in CBE, money is not everything. We need your time. We need volunteers in schools. That's why you see many learning areas have what we call a resource person. So parents need to be aware that if they have a skill we need in school, instead of they just struggling alone, they can volunteer their time to come and you know, handle that particular area. For example, in literature, I see there's a time we require someone from the community to come and talk about oral traditions in the community. That can be a parent who understands that. And then linkages. As a parent, we may not have resources that are needed, but we know of an organization that has those resources that the school needs. Okay. For example, a while ago, I've told you my son is in grade 10, and the school, he took a subject called aviation. And as soon as he settled into the school, I remember calling the teacher and asking the teacher, so what are you doing about the aviation subject? The teacher told me, well, we lack major resources. For example, there are many things that they need. We don't even have a workshop, an aviation workshop in the school. We need to have these boys see and engage in a workshop. So what did we do, or what did I do? I looked for an aviation school somewhere, and I linked the school. And so now the boys have now a place they go to. They don't need to own the workshop as a school, but what they need is to have a partnership with a facility. Another group that they are doing agriculture, they needed a very good partnership with a company or an organization that does value addition. So what did I do? So I'm talking about what I've done as a parent in CBE, and to show us that really it's us individuals who will help this thing work. I had talked to a farm somewhere they have a big farm where they grow the crops, they keep the animals, they do value addition, and they export. So helped that school again get a partnership. So now the students, in addition to the agriculture they're doing in the classroom, they're able to go and see how these agriculture skills can grow. I'm using that as a parental engagement skill. So when our parents understand, so why am I able to link up these schools with what they need? It's because I understand what they need. And every parent can come to this understanding through sensitization. Let's come to the second parental skill. It's participatory decision making. Right now, every school must have a PA, a parents association. It's through the parents, and it doesn't matter whether it's a public school or a private school. Even private schools must have a PTA, okay? The public schools have a parents association, but they do the same thing because parents are co-creators of the learning environment. And so they must be involved in decision making at the school level. So parents in CBE need to be guided and skilled on how to make, to participate in decision making in the school. If you are a PA, what is expected of you? If you are just a parent, what is expected of you? Okay, how can your concerns be heard? All right, so participatory decision making skill is very important. The third one is communication and collaboration. This is one of the major lacking skills also that our parents have, because you find our parents and guardians don't know how to communicate to a teacher. You know, a teacher, it's not a shouting match. If you feeling uncomfortable with whatever is happening in your child's school or classroom, there is a way you should communicate. In the sense of, when you communicate well, you are able to get the help that you need. The school or the concerned administrators are able to understand. And then as a community together, through participatory decision making, this communication and collaboration helps us work together. So parents need to be guided on how to develop, how to communicate basically with the school, with their child, with other parents, with the PA, how you communicate across those 4 levels of communication that are very key to the success of your child. All right? Number 4, learning and development process. In this picture, you can see a variety of activities going on. Why are these variety of activities important? Yeah. So why are these variety of activities important? It's because of learning and development. Children at different levels learn in very different ways. And learning and development process explains to us clearly why the CBE system is structured in a manner of 2, 6, 3, 3, 3. It explains why our learners take 2 years in preschool, PP1 and PP2. And when parents understand this learning and development process, they will understand why CBE keeps emphasizing that we only need a child who is 4 years in PP1. If your child is lower than 4 years, they should not be in PP1, because the learning from that point is tailored for someone who is 4 years old, someone who is 5 years old. When you get to senior school, you've seen a CBE, if you look at the policy document, it keeps emphasizing that senior school is for learners between the ages of 15 and 17, 18. Why? CBE is an age-based system where if we say that we only need people between the age of 15 and 17, 18 in senior school, it means that that learning environment has been curated for late adolescents. When we say that we want people in junior school between the ages of 11, 12 and 15, 14, it essentially means that the learning is the complex content that is being handled can only be taken by these kinds of people, so that when our parents understand this, they are able to also cooperate, okay, and support learning. When we say a child is in, say, PP1, the learning resources that they need in preschool and the learning resources that are needed in senior school or junior school or lower primary or upper primary are different. So parents need to be supported to understand learning and development process. Okay. Now let's come to this digital literacy. In CBE right now, everything about learning is happening online. You saw in grade 9, the letters of admission to grade 10, all of them were only being gotten from online platforms. You could not get any from any physical location. When it came to getting the learner assessment reports, everything is happening online. Our learners in classrooms right now are using digital devices. So our parents also need to be supported to understand the implication of, the digital devices to learning as we move forward, and to understand how to support their children navigate. Then let's come to parental engagement, this competence, parental engagement. It's complex, but it's also very simple. When I say I want to engage you, I want to engage you, The reason why we do engagement, for example, Paul wants to get married to Mary. Paul will engage Mary. This engagement means our eyes are focused on each other because there's a goal that we need to achieve. We need to do life together. The same way, once a parent takes a child to a school, you have signed up your engagement with that school. All right? And it's that serious. Your child is learning here. So we need you to participate, to come, be available, show up intentionally. Then the last bit here is the career guidance and mentorship skill. So the problems we are seeing in senior school as we speak are due to lack of this skill in parents, career guidance and mentorship. Well, the other thing that people keep talking about is, what about parents who didn't go to school and they are, they are not literate? How do they engage in this? That's why every child has a teacher, and the government makes sure that teachers are trained to the same level. For example, all the teachers in senior school right now, give or take, they have a degree and they're registered with TSC. Of course, we have others who have diploma, but it's been elevated, and so they're teaching in senior school. What that tells you is, even if a parent is not able to understand, teachers can support. But how does a parent who has not gone to school understand? Even if you didn't go to school, if your child loves farming, utaona tu anapenda vitu kuhusu shamba. Utaona tu anapenda vitu kuhusu michezo ama arts. So that's what we mean. So that as a parent, you also arrive at a point of peace with your child's chosen pathways. So parents need to be supported to understand all this. Bernard, am I still here?
Yeah, we are together. You are very audible. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's go to the next slide. So, as a parents also, maybe we can look at this and see where the skills that we are lacking. This also helps us begin a journey of, if I need to understand career guidance, you narrow down to, where can I get career guidance information in CBE? Okay. If I need to understand digital engagement in CBE, what do I need to know? There are platforms right now that every parent needs to know. Okay. The platform where people are getting subject combinations from, the platform where people are seeing schools and which subject combination is being offered in a school. So once you break, the reason why personally I took time to break down these skills to 7, so that as parents, we are not continuously just venting and saying, ECB ni mbaya, sielewi. No. You just pick and say, I don't understand career guidance. You look for, even as teams here, so that you are able to say, which of these skills do our parents need the most? Then you look for someone to give them the training that they need or the support. So this becomes easier for you to move forward as a team, also as a parent. Now, I like to talk about the context of CBE so that we can brush through many of the things that we keep hearing. There are many misleading kinds of informations that we've had about CBE online. I think even the media perpetuating for such a long time. And Kenyans keep asking, ECB ilitoka wapi? That's a question people keep asking, but this is the reality. In the year 2010, we all went and voted yes or no for the new constitution. If you were 18 years of age, I'm glad I voted then, and you didn't vote, that means other people voted on your behalf, okay? But we voted for the Constitution, the Constitution referendum. And the first lines of the Constitution of Kenya are, "We, the people of Kenya." So we collectively as a country actually voted to have CBE. Okay, so it's not something that someone went somewhere and sat and said, "Oh, I need to come up with this." No, because Kenyans, when they went to the ballot, the Constitution of Kenya envisions an education system that is a fundamental human right, that is free, that is compulsory. Also, this basic education explains why grade 12 will have a certificate called KCBE, Kenya Certificate of Basic Education. It's the Constitution, all right? Now you'll go and look at these articles in the Constitution. Now, this kind of education that the Kenyans voted for should promote inclusive, equitable, quality, and lifelong learning that fosters competence, creativity, and national unity while aligning with the National Development Goals of Vision 2030. This is what Kenyans voted for, and it's contained in the Constitution, all right? But now, how did we end up with CBE? Long before we have CBC and CBE, the lawyers sat down and said, this is the kind of education system that Kenyans want. So the construction of CBE as a curriculum did not even begin with people in the education sector. It began with the law fraternity. Okay? So the lawyers, all those that the constitutional lawyers said, Kenyans wamesema wanataka this kind of education. Okay? Put it together. They now called the people in education sector and told them, what kind of education looks like this? This one that Kenya wants, that fosters competence, creativity, national unity, and aligns with the National Development Goals of Vision 2030. Okay? That is how we ended up. So now the government and then, of course, now Ministry of Education, which is charged with all these, and KICD, sat and developed this. But the curriculum has gone through a long journey. Okay? But before I look at the vision of CBE, I want to talk about this slide 10, then I'll go back. Now, CBE, another conversation that keeps going on is that CBE, I don't know, came from, I don't know who, it's a foreign concept, which is not true actually. So CBE, if you look at a child in grade 10 right now and a child in Form 3 of 844, those two people are 25 years apart in terms of curriculum implementation and global alignment. What do I mean? What do I mean? The years in this first slide here, before CBE or CBC, and by the way, why is it called CBE finally and not CBC? CBC, a curriculum matures and becomes an education system, okay? So it started off as a curriculum. We were mainly concerned about the learning content and changing it. But as the learning content in our classroom changed, the curriculum, it forced us to change how teachers are trained. It forced us to change how assessment is done. It has forced us to change how education administration is done. That's why right now, we never used to have a directorate for junior schools at Jogo House, but now we have a directorate for junior schools. Before junior schools, we used to have the Directorate of Primary Education and the Directorate of Secondary Education. Now we have the Directorate of Junior Schools, the third one. So when a curriculum impacts an education system such that it changes an education system, it overhauls it, that's when it becomes an education system in itself. So the curriculum CBC matured, and that is the most beautiful thing that has happened to our country. So there is no confusion. So now that I've put that on the side, now this slide here, the years between 95 and 2000 were very critical to curriculum change. I remember, particularly the year 2000, my grandmother, I lost my parents as a child, so I was raised by my grandmother. Now, my grandmother and her friends, I used to hear them talk a lot that dunia inaisha, sijui computers zitashindwa kuruka, sijui 2000. Like there was just a lot happening in the year 2000. And it seemed like the world was coming to an end. That is what, people were concerned with. But at the education level, a lot was happening. Between 95 and 2000, we have UNESCO. UNESCO is concerned with education, the same way WHO is concerned with health. Now, the year 95 and the year 2000, it was very clear that the child who will be born in the millennium will be a very different child. That child will be a digital native, okay? The 21st century child. This child, the borders that exist within countries will not be visible. For instance, now if you go online, like on TikTok, you can see people from across the world and interact with them. You even forget anything to do with that you are not in America or in the US or in Tanzania or Uganda. It's like you are living in their realities. So this is a child who has been born in the 21st century. The digital space is open. The borders are almost non-existent. And today, if you give any child, I think about 2 years, or even below that, think about a year or so, they already know what a digital device is. They may not be able to talk to you, but if you give them like a remote or a phone, they can go to YouTube and play whatever it is that they're thinking about. So in the 21st century, it was very clear that the first mother tongue of the children of the 21st century will not be the language you speak. It will be digital. All right? Now, that alone tells you that this person is very different. And so we need to change the education system for the 21st century learners. Now, what happened? Using this perspective, UNESCO, and people talk about UNESCO like it's something foreign. No. UNESCO, even personally, I've represented Kenya to UNESCO, okay? So when UNESCO is having conversations about countries, about education systems, every country donates delegates to UNESCO. And people sit there as delegates and they discuss and they talk about the education systems of their country. And we all contribute as a global platform. So now at UNESCO, people came together and said, the treasure within, it's a old document. This treasure within says, this child is a digital native in the 21st century, but this child is born with a lot of treasures within. They are born with a lot of abilities. So if we are going to have a quality education system in the 21st century, then it will not just emphasize on knowledge. 844 emphasizes on knowledge. Knowledge, knowledge. No, no, no. That is the 20th century curriculum. It emphasized on knowledge. Now, say in 21st century, instead of just emphasizing on 100% knowledge, let us break down what an education system in the 21st century needs to look like. So learners in 21st century need to learn to do. They need to have skills, because if you have knowledge and you can't do, of what use is the knowledge for you? Then learning to live together. Remember, I told you, learners and young people right now, we have no borders. Even our homes, when someone goes online, you even think you live with them in their house. So we need to learn to live together. That means the attitude we have, our education system should also shape our attitude. And then learning to be. The aptitude, okay, learning to be, to become the best I can be in the skills I have, in the knowledge, in the skills, in the attitude, learning to be, the aptitude also. Now, these pillars, so what happened after the year 2000? Countries like the developed countries, they moved very fast, overhauled their education systems, and moved on. And that's why today, you hear someone in Japan or someone in the US or in Germany or in China, if you listen keenly, if you have relatives in those countries and ask them what their children are doing, if you listen keenly, they will describe something very similar to CBE. Something very similar to CBE, okay? They will tell you their children go to school, like our children in Kenya. There are a lot of use of digital devices in those classrooms. They will tell you assessments. They keep being sent to do assessments here and there, and parents are engaged. They will describe something similar to what CBE is. If you look at the international systems in Kenya right now, the IGCSE and what have you, that's why you hear some Kenyans saying it's like CBE is like IGCSE, but is watered down. No. The relationship that all these curriculums have is that they are all 21st century curriculums, and they were developed at the same table, UNESCO. But because those countries had resources, they moved very fast, 26, 25 years ago, and implemented CBE. Nimetumia hayo maneno mengi to answer very key questions so that we move forward. There are people who kept saying, which countries are implementing CBE? Every country in the world. Every. In fact, if you look at the East Africa Harmonization Framework for Curriculums here 2019, a very public document that you can Google online, it will tell you that all EAC countries, Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, and Tanzania are all implementing CBE. And the CBE they're implementing is contained and explained in this framework document. Okay? Yes. So, Kenya did not import CBE. Kenya is a signatory to UNESCO, and Kenya participates in global discussions on education. Then develops a curriculum relevant to the country. That is the one thing I want us to understand this segment. Now, if Kenya is aligned to the world in terms of the 21st century curriculum, and then Kenya is also aligned to EAC, East Africa. So how has Kenya Kenyanized its own curriculum? Okay, all right. Now, although Kenya adapted CBE to fit national priorities, if you look at our textbooks and the curriculum designs, you'll see we have integrated Kenyan values and citizenship and national identity. You will see that in CBE, we have aligned Vision 2030 and the National Development Goals. You'll see that the CBC pathways are linked to local economic needs and talents. All right? Then you'll see that we have included indigenous knowledge, community involvement, and parental engagement. Also, the journey of developing CBE and CBC has been very participatory. That's why in 2022, we had the Presidential Working Party that went across the country and collected views from all Kenyans because of community involvement, parental engagement. So that is what is happening. Then the CBC in Kenya focuses on competence, creativity, and employability for Kenyan learners. But there are Kenyans who are very interesting. Anytime you tell them about employability, they tell you, we fundisha watoto, wewe wacha kuambia mambo ya employment. Kama tuko na watu in 844 hawana kazi, watoto wa CBE, mnatuambia aje mambo ya kazi? A curriculum is what leads to the realities of a country. Okay? For instance, if you look at CBE, we now have the arts and sports pathway that takes care of our sportsmen and women. In 844, we didn't have anything to do with sports. Wewe kama unaweza cheza vizuri, wewe cheza tu, fika hata international, but rudi chini kaa, fanya maths, chemistry, biology, English. Hiyo ndio tunataka kuona una perform aje. What you can do well, we don't care. So by focusing on the pathways and by opening up a whole industry of sports in the curriculum and encouraging learners to go there, what this curriculum is essentially doing, for example, I'm just using one pathway, is ensuring that people in the sports industry are able to begin exploring career options in sports. Therefore, as I come to an end, this segment, CBE is localized. CBE is a localized global direction for the country. It responds to the unique social, cultural, and economic realities while preparing our learners both for national and global participation. Okay? I hope that answers our second concern. Okay, it answers. I was explaining the first bit. Now, let me look at the vision of CBE. The vision. Where are we heading with this curriculum? Okay. In fact, when the Constitution of Kenya changed in 2010, the education sector by then was very ready with the 21st century curriculum. So that's why when they were asked, this is what Kenyans want, the only place that Kenya could go to was the 21st century curriculum. Okay? So that's supposed to tie up with this. Now, the vision of CBE is to enable every Kenyan to become engaged, empowered, and ethical. This vision seeks to provide world-class education that equips learners with knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes needed in the 21st century. 21st century will come up a lot as we discuss education, because we need to understand that 844 prepared us for the 20th century. So we are essentially very different people from our children. In fact, someone who is in Form 3 and someone who is in grade 10, they are very different. On Friday, we had a session here for career guidance for people who cleared the ex-candidates who are Form 4. if you listened to their engagements and you also happen to be in a similar session with someone in grade 10, you'll actually, your heart will bleed for the learners in 844. Because when you listen to people in grade 10, their level of awareness in terms of, their engagement, the level of how they are empowered to understand what they are good at, what they want to do. If you look at their counterparts in the 844 system, it's not the same. Now, the CBE mission is to nurture every learner's potential, okay? This implies that CBE is designed to identify and nurture the unique potential that each learner brings to school. That is why in CBE, we keep emphasizing, talk to your child, understand their strengths, their desires, their interests, their abilities, then help them choose a pathway and subject combination for themselves. But most parents are not yet there. Okay? So they're interfering with the potential of the child. Okay. Let us now look at something here that I need us to see even as we jump into CBE itself. Many people ask, so what is the difference between CBE and 844? What is the difference? This is the difference. 844 is just 20% of what CBE is. And I'm using senior school because now when you look at it from senior school level, you are able to see down to the PP1 how these components turned out. In 844, Ben, am I still here?
You are still clear.
Okay.
Can hear you,
Do we have
yes.
engagements in the comment section?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, 844 was only 20% because most of what we did in 844 was at this first level, classroom learning. Remember when I told you about the 21st century curriculum? This one, UNESCO. The 20th century curriculum emphasized on knowledge, learn, classroom learning. Pita mtihani, soma. This is where we are at. This is where 844 is at, okay? Now, when you look at this, our learners in CBE are still doing this. They are still in their various classrooms. There's this learning content that they need to cover. There is still direct instruction and facilitation going on by the teachers, all that. But in addition to this, you'll see clearly that there are a lot of projects now. Project-based learning is a huge inclusion in learning in every subject, every strand, every substrand. You'll see a project. A strand, well, for those who are not in the classrooms, a strand is like the topic, what we used to call topic. A substrand is the subtopic. But why is the name different? It's a strand because what a learner learns in PP1, we continue building on it up to the university level. For example, what we hear our learners talking about, A, book, F, those, how they are learning how to pronounce. You know, that is what I learned in university first year in a unit called phonetics and phonology. So I did English and literature. So in phonetics and phonology, that's where that comes from. A, book. It helps learners and children learn better how to read. It's a faster way of learning how to read. So you're going to even realize that learners in CBE begin learning how to read faster than in 844. Okay, because of those phonetics and even pronunciation of words. Okay, so I was explaining why we are calling them strands, because that concept goes all the way. Even the animals that they are seeing, the science activities that they are doing in PP1, at the university level, they branch off to many different disciplines. At senior school, that science activities branches off to STEM. It's a whole different world. So that's why they're called strands. Okay, now you'll see a subject called community service learning. It's, of course, it's more pronounced in senior school, it's a subject, but in all the grades up to PP1, you will see learners being told, go to your community, do this in the community, get a community resource person. That is community service learning. Why is it becoming a major component of learning in the 21st century? It's because we need to begin emphasizing to even our young people and even to ourselves that, for example, when I say I'm a teacher and I'm a curriculum specialist, it's not a trophy that I need to carry around and say, you know, mimi ni mwalimu. Unajua, mimi ni curriculum specialist. No, it's a mark of service. It's a mark of service. That all those things I'm saying, they only get value in service. It is by engaging in teaching activities and curriculum-related activities that I earn a living. It is in engaging in this community service learning, like the one I'm doing right now, that I add value to the community. So that's the entire essence of community service learning. So if a learner is doing, for example, biology in senior school, how will your biology improve your community? If you're doing woodwork, there's a school that I saw in grade 10. They are doing woodwork. The group of students doing woodwork, the project they have identified next term, they want to go to the nearby primary school and use their woodwork skills to repair some lockers for their neighboring primary school. So that's what it means. The skills, the knowledge you have, let them get service somewhere. Then number 4, we have ICT integration. You'll see that in all the learning areas. And it's in this platform that I want to say this. In CBE, a digital device is the same as a textbook. And if children are in a classroom and they don't have digital devices in CBE and Wi-Fi, it's the same as being in a classroom without textbooks. Imagine. Yeah. Why is ICT integration important to learning? It introduces global perspectives. How? For example, if I want to teach about, say, literature in a class, you know, I want to teach about poetry in my class. If I use my notes and the textbook, what I'm giving my class is my perspectives and their perspectives. But if I introduce digital learning and I ask them to look up for information on poetry online, and they're able to get information in that particular topic or substrand or learning area, and they get someone else talking about it, what they are getting are global perspectives on the same issue. So they are having what we call an enhanced learning opportunity. All right? So as teachers, we facilitate them We show them what we have, what's in the class, and then the global perspectives. That's why it becomes very important. And that's why you can see in the textbooks, it keeps talking about use a digital device, look up for this information. It's because we are introducing the global perspectives to learning. The other point is the pre-career experience. In CBE, learners have to be exposed to careers through community service learning, job shadowing, apprenticeships, resource persons. The other name for senior school curriculum is the pre-career curriculum. The other name is the incubation curriculum. Incubation meaning the 3 years that they have in senior school, they are supposed to exit. No longer dreaming about careers, but having one foot inside the career. If they have an innovation, can senior school be their innovation hub where they come on board and innovate whatever they want? Okay? Yes, so that's how it looks like. Up to this point, I don't know if I have a question. So all these components, although they are more pronounced in senior school, they exist through all the levels of CBE. So those people who kept saying, in China, learners are making phones. People who are 10 years are making watches. In fact, in CBE, if a school is serious, they can do that. For example, we have a subject called metalwork in senior school that I saw many parents talking about and calling it welding. But metalwork, everything we have around us is made up of metal. Even this tablet, laptop I'm using is made up of metal. So a learner who is doing metalwork in senior school, those are innovators that can build anything. If they also are doing computer studies or together with the computer studies team, they can innovate anything. So that's the kind of curriculum we have. I hope that is clear up to this point. I'll take a break and take up questions. I need now to engage with us before I continue further. Ben, do we have questions?
Mm,
We are moving
not yet.
well. We are moving
Yeah.
well. Yes. Now, kindly engage me. Mi ni mwalimu, nikiulizwa maswali na wanafunzi wangu naona vizuri sana. Now, the zone of proximal development.
Anne,
Yes.
there's one from Daniel.
Yes.
Yeah. Daniel is asking whether there's a chance that we can revert back to it for 4.
There is no chance ever. Reverting back to 844 is reverting back to a 20th century curriculum that cannot help any of us. And also the Constitution of Kenya cannot even allow us. So when you hear people talking about we can change the system, the education, like I remember before elections, I remember it was a major discussion in the country that, oh, vote for me, I'll remove CBE and give you, it's not possible. No one can do that. In fact, if they do that, everyone will be back to court because that would be a major violation of the Constitution of Kenya. Another question I keep asking parents, why do we want to be stuck with a curriculum system that only gives us 20%, while the rest of the world, globally, have 80% of an education system, this 100%. So it's not possible to go back. So the only thing that is to move forward. Imagine, I've told you we already have the first group of CBE learners getting out in the next 2 years. That is it. Okay? And the country has invested trillions of money in this. And if you know something about our country is that we don't like using money. Money. And if we use money, and then you tell us you want to go back and make all that money a waste, even the global world will not accept. For Kenya to move back to 844, remember the East Africa Harmonization Curriculums Framework. Let me show you how serious this thing is. You see the East Africa Harmonization Curriculum Framework of 2019. All these countries, after sitting at UNESCO globally, and they have all the countries adopted the 21st century curriculum, these countries, by proximity of each other, and by virtue that they share human resource across these countries, EAC countries, sat down and said, how then do we have a curriculum that works for us? If Kenya has changed their constitution and they are going, the constitution of Kenya, by the way, Kenya's constitution has had a major implication on East Africa as a community. Because once Kenya changed its constitution in 2010 and then decided, as we are going CBE, we have a competence-based curriculum. You see, these other countries depend on the human resource across. People move across. So the question was, why are the others remaining behind? So they all sat down and came up with this framework. Okay? And so Kenya is an active signatory to this. So for Kenya to say today we want to remove CBE, they have to go to East Africa and render these documents null and void. I don't know which country will accept. And then now go to UNESCO, it's a lot. And then still go back to the Constitution of Kenya and change and remove this word from the Constitution of Kenya. This word, competence, creativity, national unity. So it's not possible. It's a closed deal. We are good up to that point?
Yes.
Yes. And I also had people say we keep changing from CBC to CBE. Next time it will be CBD. No, it will not. Once a curriculum becomes an education system, that's it. Okay? Now, this very simple picture here explains something very complex in a very simple way. When our learners begin, let me use an example of someone in grade 10 now. There is what they got and qualified to join the school they have joined, either C1, C2, C3, C4. Okay? There is what they know, there is their aptitude. And there is what this learner needs to know by the end of grade 10. In between here is a whole year of learning that will be happening. But something will also be happening. The reality of how learning will occur. Now, the person who facilitates a move from what the learner knows to what the learner needs to know is a teacher. So the teachers are the best scaffold. If you see a building being built, hiyo miti imeshikilia hiyo floor so that learning can go on, so that that building can stay in place. In learning, it's a teacher. So the teacher is the greatest scaffold for this learner. In the same class, we have people we call more knowledgeable others. These are learners. If it's in mathematics, they already exceed expectation. So they are very good in the subject. So they are leading group discussions and they are helping others learn. As learning is going on, these learning resources will determine how learning will occur. The lack of or presence of learning resources will also determine a lot what the learner will know at the end of this period. Then the age of the learner. Underage learners are a big problem. Why? Why? There's a reason why a child in PP1, for us to tell them about 10, we have to give them 10 actual objects to count and to see. It's because their brain has not developed to process abstract things. They cannot imagine the 10. They cannot imagine the 10 because their brain is not yet abstract in the way it is formed because of their age. Okay? So that's why we need to have physical things for them to count. And that reality of abstract thinking occurs across all levels of learning. That's why I said, when we say that learners in grade 10 need to be between the age of 15 and 17, 18, it means that the kind of abstract thinking required for this level of learning is for this particular age of a learner. Because automatically, at that particular age, the brain has gone to that level of complexity. Now, so the age of the learner will determine a lot. There's something someone has asked. What if a child was born between Jan, Feb, and March? Can they join PP1 in January waiting to celebrate their 4th birthday? I usually leave these answers to parents by asking them this question. A child who was born a month ago and a child who is born today, there's a very clear big difference between those two. A child who was born today and a child who is 6 months old, there's a very big difference between those two. A child who is 1 year old today and one who is 1 day or 1 month old today, there's a huge difference. And you know the thing is, those differences don't magically disappear. Okay? They don't magically disappear now that a child is on their feet, they are running around, they are walking. No, that difference is in their brain. So it's forever there. Let's look at the reality that this child is going to meet. The truth is, I think my son was born in June. So when he joined PP1, he was already 4.5 years old. Okay? Because of that 6-month delay. So he was already 4.5 years, half years old in PP1. In that same class, there was a child who was 3 years old. I could see the difference, a big difference. This is how it affects a child. A child is in PP1, 4 years old or 4.5. I used my son as an extreme because that's usually the reality of the children born in the mid of the year. Now, a child is 4.5 years old, or another is 4 years old, another is 3 years old. They are trying to do activities together. They are doing activities together in the classroom. This one who is 3 years old can clearly see this other one who are 4, ama 4.5, they are not struggling. They are doing things easily. it starts affecting the confidence of this child from very early. And so this child continuously becomes very aware that there's a child who is better than me. And so even when learning is happening, their focus is shifted to this other one who can do things easily. If a child is asking a question, a 4.5-year-old, because they already have a bit of abstract thinking and their brain is a bit more enhanced, they can hold a conversation with the teacher very easily. The other one is still struggling. Okay? So it leads to a lot of cortisol. There's a whole research that has been done on that. It eventually affects how this child learns. So it's up to the parent to make the decision. Okay? So I've gone through all that to give you the context and the reality so that you can now see. Would you rather your child is in a place with their peers, people of their age, doing the same thing? Your child is at the same age, they are feeling equally competent, or they are continuously in an environment where they feel overstimulated because someone else is doing things faster than they can. On that note, let me address something that parents continuously say, mtoto wangu ako haraka. My child is fast. Let me answer that question by giving us this reality. At the beginning of this year, I admitted a 17-year-old. Abby, how can this self-confidence be solved in a scenario you've explained? The only way you can solve it by making sure that child is just with the people of her age. Imagine, you cannot solve it. You cannot talk them into enhancing their confidence because, see, they don't know. It's a monkey see, monkey do kind of a situation when you are handling learners at that very formative age. Like, you can't talk them into motivation. You can't harass them into motivation. You can't. That's why CBE continues emphasizing on let the child be within the same age of, the learners. Let me tell you about age and these parents who keep saying, my child is fast. At the beginning of this year, I admitted a 17-year-old to the university. Okay? A 17-year-old. I am their guardian. So I took them for admission to the university because alimaliza Form 4 last year. And so they got an opportunity to alimaliza Form 4 in November. So in January, they got an opportunity to begin a program at the university. So I took this boy to admit him. Remember, he's 17 years old. There's nothing wrong with their aptitude mentally. They can actually hack what is going on in the university. But look at the environment we've already introduced this boy to. The people in the university are 18 years, uko, tukisonga, tukiendanga, adults. So you have a child in an adult environment. So I remember even as we were doing the admissions and we had finished, the dean of students called me to the office and told me, I hope as parents and guardians, you are very aware that you've given us an underage student. We hope you've talked to him on what it takes to stay in this environment. And we hope as parents, you have made peace with the reality that there is no child protection in this environment. Yes, as a university, we will do all we can, but then he's with adults and adult activities will be going on and vices will be going on. So I don't know, at that point, that's when it hit me. I was like, oh my God. So this boy should actually have been in Form 4 right now under very clear child protection so that by the time anamaliza November, ndiye ataturn 18 ako na ID, even the way he's going through education right now, he's using the parents' ID. Like, before he goes anywhere, he has to say where he is, unlike the peers. This boy has to grow up very fast. Now, too fast socially, because look at the environment where he's in. So that's why I was saying, even this pushing mtoto amalize shule haraka does not really help the child in the long run. Because even in the university, he's 17, there are 20-year-olds in his class, 21, 22. You see, he'll still be comparing himself and wondering many things. Okay? Yeah, so that's the reality. So as a parent, you need to make peace with that. Let's look at this zone of proximal development very fast. As we have this learner here in grade 10, waiting to exit them to grade 11, the attitude of the learner will matter. Parental engagement will matter. Then we have what we call social justice. Social justice, this is now where we bring in things like guidance and counseling, things like understanding the issues like poverty and the school being able to come in and do something about it to ensure this child stays in school. Social justice in education, we usually treat education systems and schools like a table. Okay? A table. And so the social issues going on in our school are like one leg of that table. So no matter what you put on that table, you can bring the best teachers, you can bring resources, the learner can have the best attitude to learn, the age could be okay, the parent engagement could be okay. But if these learners are struggling with these drugs and substance abuse, that becomes the fourth leg, the fourth weak leg on that table. So everything will collapse. Okay? So this explains why we also need to have very strong guidance and counseling departments, career guidance, okay, parental engagement, and all this. Because of one simple reason, scaffolding, supporting these learners to get from what they know and to what they need to know so that we can take them to the next level. Okay? As you are thinking about the zone of proximal development, how learners learn, as teachers here and as as the caregivers, there's something that we will dangerously have to make peace with. Painfully, it's here. What a learner cannot know, even with all this scaffolding support we are talking about, this learner cannot know. This is why most of us end up frustrated with learners. Nimekulipia fee, nimekufanyia kila kitu, nimefanya nini, mbona I will improve this. So it means the zone of proximal development has not changed. It's still as wide as it was. There is no change in the litmus paper. So when you see this, what a learner cannot know even with support, you have to come back here and look at what is missing. It could be many times social justice. Okay? Then, as you are looking at the zone of proximal development, there's also beautiful things that happen. You begin seeing what a learner can know with support. Then you begin seeing, if this child gets a teacher who can support them, they will get where we want them to be. So, understanding the zone of proximal development is very important because of our theme today, which is supporting transition, so that our learners are giving us the outcome that is, equivalent to the investment we are putting in. So this chart is very, very important. And let's look at this last part here. In learning, everything is usually very visible. What a learner knows is very visible, and what a learner does not know is also visible. Okay? So that's why we continuously have to do what we call diagnostic assessment of our learners. I don't know how many learners you are in charge in the stations you are. So we need to continuously do diagnostic assessment. Looking at all these things we've talked about, could it be the resources they lack? Could it be parental engagement is not adequate? Could it be social justice is also not adequate? Okay, so this chart is very important as we, support transition. Now, I like using this chart when we are talking about education of children and young people. And so that collectively, as a community and then as an organization, and even as we talk to our young people, they begin understanding that a child's personal choices in education and their lack of, or ability to exceed expectation, it's not only impacting their family, it's impacting our community, it's impacting our school, it's impacting our country, and it impacts the person we donate to the international space. Let me tell you how an individual decision ends up impacting the international space and impacting countries at a global space. So I spoke about the fact that sometimes I have represented Kenya at UNESCO global discussion meetings where you are actually discussing a country's education system, Kenya. And the person whose brain, mind, attitude, behavior has come to the global space is Anne. What if this Anne who is representing Kenya does not have the right attitude about the country Kenya? And they're discussing about Kenya at an international space and representing Kenya. People at that space keep saying, if this is who Kenyans are, then then we don't think there is education going on in that country. But if we have passionate people, knowledgeable, with the right attitude coming to this space, then we are donating. An individual was donated here, but is giving us value. So we need to do a lot in terms of scaffolding for our learners, supporting learning, ensuring we have the right outcome so that the people we are donating to our community, I've said grade 9 learners, grade 10 learners now, are 2 years away from joining us as active members of our community, as active members of our country. Right now, they are impacting education systems across this country. That's why you see senior schools across really stressed up, because we didn't do well here when they were in grade 9 in terms of guiding them and everything. So we've donated learners who are either negatively or positively impacting the education systems where they have gone to, the schools. So that's why we need to do a lot here because of these circles of influence. And this is also how we are influencing the organizations we are at. All right. Now, let's look at this chart for once. We are covering a lot. I hope I'm not leaving us behind. Ben, could someone unmute and talk to me? Ben, David is asking, what about learners who have delayed milestones? David, important question for our discussion. Now, someone is, Peter, how are you? David is asking, we have CBE, the age-based system. Age-based. Okay? We have CBE for special needs learners. We have SNE education. Now, when we talk about learners with delayed milestones, one of the biggest challenges we have, even in the education system as we speak, people, or the question that most of us struggle with, is it delayed because this learner has special needs? And by special needs, I don't even mean like the most pronounced ones. Is it special needs in terms of the very basic, you know, there is the special needs that can delay a child's milestone. They don't need to be autism or cerebral palsy, but we can have reading difficulties. So at the heart of delayed milestones, we have something called, I don't know if we've heard of KISE, the Kenya Institute of Special Education, that is somewhere in Kasarani. So usually, my first advice when you are talking about delayed milestones, the place where you need to have that conversation at is at KISE. Why? So that this child, an assessment is done very fast, so that they rule out or they point out exactly what is leading to these delayed milestones that are affecting learning. And so that we are able to determine from the onset if this child belongs to the age-based system, which is PP1 all the way to grade 12, or they belong to the special needs CBE system, okay, which is also parallel with CBE. Or do we need to have this child in the age-based system, but with additional support? David, so there's usually another different presentation that we do for special needs. But that is my just brief answer. Yeah, Dennis, so once you go to KISE, that's where you need to get a diagnosis. Once you go to KISE and they give you a diagnosis or they give you a referral to where you will get the appropriate diagnosis. But I know KISE does that because we have people coming from different parts of Africa to KISE. Every time you go there, you'll find people from even South Africa. You know, there's a time I went there and I met a group from Ghana who had come for that assessment. Anytime you go there and they do an assessment, they will guide you on what needs to be done. Okay? Because different delayed milestones or special needs require different kinds of interventions. And they will even tell you which school you can work with, which school has the facilities that you need. But that was a very great discussion, addition to the discussion. Because if you have a learner who is, who is the zone of proximal development is not being addressed because we have not given them an assessment, then this learner, they will not know. Even if you do any kind of support, they will not move because they are not getting the appropriate learning environment. I hope that answers our question. David and Dennis. Abby, I also hope you had peace with the fact that the only way to improve a child's confidence when we're looking at age is to have them with their peers. If you have 3-year-olds peke yao, then they have the same abilities most times if there are no delayed milestones, so the child's confidence is inabustiwa immediately. I don't know if someone wants to say something. Abby?
Son? Yes,
Yes.
I'm following.
Okay, but you've had an answer to that question, right? Now, I said in CBE, assessment is intertwined with learning. That's why when our learners sat for KJSEA, many parents were talking about exam, and you kept hearing MOE talking about assessment. Why? Because KJSEA by itself, the KJSEA that is sat for in November is only 60%. The 40% is already in the system, accumulated through and through. By the way, assessment in CBE starts at grade 3. I hope our parents know this by now. So from grade 3, there is very serious learning going on. And whatever is being entered in the system by the school will have an impact eventually at KJSEA level. Even right now in senior school, they will do NEC-based assessment in grade 10, in grade 11, and finally in grade 12. Grade 11 and 10 will cater for 30%. So the KCB that they will sit for somewhere in November or October, there about 2020, that will be 2029. By the learner. Okay, as this feedback is being given, there is reflection going on. Reflection going on the part of the learner. What didn't I do well? What do I need to improve? Reflection on the part of the teacher. What more learning resources do I need? What more learning support do my learners need? Then improvement occurs on both ends. The learner improves, the teacher improves their instruction, and then we move forward to the next goal. The reason why we are doing this is because our learners are being supported to move from instruction to modeling, to being guided, to practicing, and then to the point of independence. As you can see, the teacher is guiding and the parent is here to offer encouragement. So parental involvement in CBE, even here, there's a teacher here, probably a learner, and a parent here. Parental engagement here when learning is going on, here when our learners are being led to independence. So we cannot separate. So in CBE, you cannot say as a teacher, oh, nitafunza hii, alafu I will prepare them for the exam. It will be a disservice to this learner because of the way learning is structured in CBE.